today the advantage is basically if you're an independent PM, the idea of going and dealing with all of the hassle, and it is a hassle, take it from an asset manager, to set up all the back office and the infrastructure and manage the clients and, do all the stuff in the compliance, the compliance, do all the stuff that every asset manager hates to do in their day to day, but nonetheless has to do it. Right. Or you could just go to a pod, basically plug in, send them your views and, benefit from the data and the infrastructure that's been built. There's a lot of advantages to that. And I think that's why we see, if you look at the data, it's 2024 is the smallest number of hedge fund startups in the past 25 years. And a big reason why that is people are like, well, do I build this all myself, which is a huge pain, or do I just plug into a pod shop, get guaranteed base compensation, and hopefully I can, keep up with the treadmill.
Well, kind of makes me think just disruption of everything. You go from 2 and 20 down, 2 and 20 and higher and down, and it's not as much fun because you can't make as much money in the most, raw sense. The idea that they've come up with novel fee structures and said, hey, we have different ways to compensate you to come into this. I hasten to use the word innovative, but it seems like this is one way to try to attract talent back into this pool.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, part of the benefit from the individual PM is there is a real benefit in socializing the operational cost in a way that starting your own funds, there's not a lot of, there's been a lot of regulatory steps that, probably are to the safety, at least some of which are to the safety of the investor. But man, oh man, does it create a high regulatory hurdle to start your own fund. Like functionally, to run your own money, you have to, 50 or 60% of your staff is going to be back office, in one form or another. That's a high cost burden just to stand things up. Just think about it. Just a very basic economics, like let's say you ran, $500 million. That's, to be clear, would be a huge raise, right? That's a lot of people can't raise $500 million. You're two, you're probably not getting two, you're probably getting one, right? You're one and maybe 15 as a startup fund. You're looking at 5 million in fixed expenses, in fixed income. That's, you probably need 10 people at the very minimum, and that's, and you haven't paid for a Bloomberg, you're sitting on the street, like there's a lot of additional expenses. You haven't paid a lawyer, there's also an ad fund, and like just all sorts of stuff that you've got to set up on top of it. And like $500 million, that's a pretty good fundraise, about as good as you're going to do as a startup manager. And so maybe, as a pod manager, you might be giving up some of the, frankly, equity opportunity to run and the flexibility to run your own shop, but you don't have to deal with all that hassle. You just show up and start running money. There's something very attractive about that.